Hey neighbors, how's everybody? This is Mike McCarty bringing you another episode of the Rough and Tumbled. A few of you out there have related to me that you're enjoying these tales. These are real life stories. I think one of them was related to me by a fellow I worked with, but as far as I know, the rest of them have all been things I experienced, things I saw, observed, and with people that I had worked with for years. Been a real pleasure to bring these memories back and, tribute to a lot of those that I've lost. Just a little bit ago, I was down on the west end of my property and visiting with a bunch of linemen. Encore was down there changing out a power pole, 7,200 volt pole. And man, I just had the best time visiting with those guys. Knew some of the guys that they've known, and there's a camaraderie that exists out there with these kind of people, because it's dangerous work, and there's just a camaraderie among them. This story I've got today goes back quite a few years, working for this company, and they sent three of us guys out on a city service lease. That's Citgo. You might have seen the Citgo gas stations, and they had a well there that was still flowing well, but it was ready to go on the pump. And so we had cut a bunch of trees in order to build a 483 phase line over to this location so that we would have power to run the pumping unit. And that's what we did on this. It was a fairly cold, not winter cold, but fairly cold fall morning, and we were wearing jackets, not real heavy stuff, but trying to keep a little warmth. And we pulled up on this location, and we got out of the truck, getting ready to get these trees cut out of the way so we could build this power line. And one of the boys, he grabbed a brush axe out of the back of the truck. You may have seen it in one of my previous episodes, but got that long blade on it, hook bill on the end, hook is sharp on both sides. And he started walking out there, and about 150 yards where those trees started, and he was whacking on them, cutting, and I let the tailgate down on the back of that 3/4 ton truck, pulled the chainsaw out, and was getting it gassed up, oiled up, and checking to see if it's sharp. And the third guy was, oh man, I'd have to say very talented. He was doing exactly what he was just an expert at, and that's watching us. I don't know if I ever saw him hit a lick in a snake. But at any rate, there I was working on that chainsaw, and that other guy standing there. And the first one was out there whacking away at those trees, and I heard him holler. And I turned around and looked, and like I said, I'd say at least 150 yards from us. Maybe not quite that far, but I thought, what's he hollering about? And he just stood there, froze, holding that brush axe. And then all of a sudden, I focused, and I realized this whole cloud of yellow jackets was coming up all around him from the ground. And it just covered him like a big old cloud. And he was standing there, and I said, "Hey, get out of there, get out of there." And he was froze. And I don't know what was in his mind exactly. And I said, "Hey, get out of there. You got to move. You got to move." And it hit me, the thought hit me of how we used to in the river bottoms. We had those high up pumping units that set up on a platform high off the ground so that when the river flooded, it wouldn't flood the motors and stuff on those pumping units. And we'd shut all that down while it was flooded. And then afterwards, have to go down there and get those things running. And if you're up on that platform and that thing's running, hadn't been run for days, it'd shake that platform, and oh man, the wasp would come out from under there by the thousands, and there you are, just you're in trouble. Well, we learned they wouldn't sting you if you just stayed perfectly still, and some said hold your breath, but all I know is you stay perfectly still and watch, let them get settled down, and you're fine. And it worked. It really worked. And I thought, that's what he's doing. That's what he's thinking. He's just trying to wait till they settle down. Well, I hollered and I said, it's too late. You can't stand there. They know you're there. They've got you. And he wouldn't move. So I told that other boy, I said, I got to go get him. And I took off walking over there toward him, kind of half trotting. And I'm hollering at him, come on. And he wouldn't move. And as I got within probably 20 yards, I pulled that jacket off, said, man, I'm going to just have to whip them off of him. And I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 yards. And he actually moved 2 or 3 steps toward me, but the cloud just came with him. I think every yellow jacket in that nest underground was already outside. I mean, man, it had to be thousands, tens of thousands, I don't know. It was unbelievable. And as I went up and whipping them off of him, just, knocking them, and well, they covered me up. I mean, I was covered up with them. So I grabbed him by the arm and I said, come on. We started walking back to that truck. Well, the cloud just came with us, and we got over there, and that other old boy, instead of just watching right now, he was moving away from us. He didn't want to tangle with them yellow jackets. Can't hardly blame him. But anyway, I said, you just hang on. We're going to have to get this boy to the hospital. And I said, somebody be out here. He wasn't going to get in the cab truck with us, not with all those yellow jackets all around us. And I got him in that hospital. They had told us in emergency, go to the Kilgore emergency room, the hospital. So that's right where I went. And as I was going into Kilgore, this boy had already started talking plumb out of his head. He didn't know what was going on. And I remember saying a little prayer, Lord, please help this man. I'm afraid I'm going to lose him before I can get him to the hospital. Because it was obvious he was in bad shape. That old poison was really working on him. And then I came on up and I saw this car pull out on the road there, and it was a cop. And I was doing 70 at his 40 mile an hour, and he turned those lights on, and I just whipped up beside him. I said, man, I need an escort to the hospital. Man, that dude said, come on, follow me. And he turned everything on, sirens, lights, and we went through red lights, and man, it was like Adam 12 or something, Anyway, we got to the hospital. Well, by this time, the guy was incoherent. He was, I just thought anytime I'm going to lose him. And the cop got out, and we got on each side of him, put his arms up on our shoulders, and we walked into that hospital just dragging his feet. And they said, what's going on? And I told them what had happened, and they got him back in there and started working on him. And after a while, doctor come, and he said, we've given him 2 big shots, antidote or whatever it was. And he said, man, it was almost too late. He said, any longer, and he said he wouldn't have made it. And then he said, well, what about you? He said, anybody look at you? I said, no, I'm fine. He said, well, I said, oh, I'm covered up with them too. I said, I still got them in my clothes here and there. They worked their way in, I said, I'm trying to get them all out. And, well, are you stung? I said, I don't think I've been stung any. They kind of looked at me, and I wasn't stung. Now, a situation like that, this guy I took in there, he's a friend of mine. And, man, that was hard to see this happening. And why is it he was stung so much, way over 100 times, they said, and I wasn't stung any? I thought about that over the years, and I honestly believe that the Lord in his mercy spared me of that so that guy could get the help he needed, because he wasn't going to make it without help. And so he works in mysterious ways. The Lord works in mysterious ways. And that way, I got to be just a small help in his hands to take care of somebody. Well, folks, I know you've all seen things, been through some things. Someday maybe, there'll be some stories that I can tell from some of y'all. I wanted to hear from some of my oil field friends. I guess maybe they're making so much money and so busy they don't have time. But I don't know about that in this day and time. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope the best for everybody out there. Please remember, if you would, to like and subscribe. I'm not quite sure what all that does, except that I know subscribing, you'll get notices of new episodes out, and hopefully you can share these and we can spread this and help more people. Well, I'm Mac McCarty, and I want to thank you for joining, and so long for the Rough and Tumble channel.